I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to find myself posting about relationship problems on the internet, but here I am, pouring out my heart and sharing my story. I'm Jake, 35 years old, and I've been married to my wife, Sarah, for nearly 8 years. It's been a whirlwind of ups and downs, but I always believed we were solid. We had our moments, sure, but the love felt real. At least I thought it was. Lately, though, things had started to feel off. Sarah, who used to be my best friend, seemed distant and preoccupied. At first, I thought it was just work stress. She's a marketing executive, and her job can be demanding. But as time went on, I noticed subtle changes that gnawed at my gut. She started coming home late more often, and when I asked about it, she'd brush me off with some excuse about last-minute meetings or team bonding events. I found it odd that she never invited me to those, considering we used to do everything together. Then came the phone situation. We had a family rule: no phones during dinner. One evening, I noticed her being unusually protective of her phone. She had it out while we ate and was scrolling through messages with this tight-lipped look on her face. I brushed it off at first, but my intuition was screaming at me. The next night she handed me her phone for a quick check on the weather, and I noticed her texts had vanished. It was like she had deleted everything. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I couldn't help it. Curiosity got the best of me. I needed to know what was going on. So I went online and found a recovery tool. I downloaded it, feeling a mix of dread and determination. It took a few minutes, but there it was, her messages brought back to life. As I scrolled through the texts, my heart sank. There were messages to someone named Mark, full of flirty banter and even plans to meet up. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. The evidence was clear, and now I had to confront her. The anger bubbled up inside me, mixing with the heartbreak. How could she do this to us? To me? I prepared myself for the confrontation, knowing it wouldn't be pretty. I waited until she got home that night, my mind racing with 100 scenarios. When she walked through the door, I could tell something was off with her too. She was on edge, packing around the living room, avoiding eye contact. I finally snapped, demanding to know if she had anything to share. Her immediate defensiveness was alarming. "What are you talking about?" she shot back, feigning innocence. But I had the upper hand. I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages. Her face went pale, and for a moment I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. "Jake, wait, it's not what it looks like," she exclaimed, but I wasn't having it. "Not what it looks like. You've been texting this guy for months, Sarah. What do you mean?" I couldn't believe the lies coming from her lips. She tried to downplay it, saying it was just harmless flirting, but I wasn't buying it. The anger boiled over, and I lashed out, demanding to know if she'd slept with him. Her hesitation spoke volumes, and my heart shattered. The emotional aftermath hit me hard. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and lost. The woman I loved was standing before me, and yet she felt like a stranger. My mind raced through our years together, all the moments we shared, all the promises made, and now they felt like lies. I didn't know how to process the whirlwind of feelings. I wanted to scream, cry, and punch something all at once. In that confrontation, I could see her trying to play the victim, insisting that I was overreacting and that we could work through this. Part of me wanted to believe her. But another part, the part that had seen the truth laid bare in front of me, was screaming to walk away. I decided right then that I couldn't just let this slide. I had to find a way to regain control of my life. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a tumultuous journey through heartbreak, anger, and ultimately revenge. My heart was heavy, but my resolve was sharpening. I had to figure out how to deal with this betrayal. I'll share more about what happened next in the following parts. After that fiery confrontation with Sarah, I was left in a fog of disbelief and anger. I thought I knew this woman, the one who had promised to love me for better or worse. But what I found was a stranger, someone capable of betrayal that left me feeling gutted. That night, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, replaying our conversations, the moments we shared, and the lies that had infiltrated our life together. Days passed, and I found myself trapped in a cycle of emotional turmoil. Sarah attempted to mend the rift, approaching me with half-hearted apologies and attempts at deep conversations. But no amount of talk could erase the betrayal. I had seen the texts, the plans she made with Mark. How could I forget? Each time she tried to engage, I felt my blood boil. I'd listened to her excuses about how she was just looking for someone to talk to and how she never meant for it to go that far. It made me feel sick. I needed to regain control, not just of the situation, but of my own life. I started plotting my revenge. It wasn't a decision I made lightly. It stemmed from a place of hurt and betrayal. I wanted her to experience a fraction of what I felt. I wasn't looking for reconciliation anymore. I just wanted her to know that her actions had consequences. The idea of revenge became a means to reclaim my power. I began digging deeper into the affair. Every night after work, I would sit in front of my computer, researching ways to gather evidence against her. I set up a hidden camera in the living room, hoping to catch her in a moment of weakness, maybe an accidental call, a slip of the tongue. I also started following her, not in a creepy way, but just enough to get a sense of whether she was still meeting Mark or if she had any other tricks up her sleeve. One Friday evening, I followed her after she said she was going out for drinks with colleagues. I had a gut feeling she was headed to meet Mark instead. I parked a few blocks away from the bar she told me about and kept my eyes peeled. Sure enough, I watched as she approached a familiar figure, the tall, lean silhouette of Mark. My heart raced as I felt the weight of betrayal press down on me. They hugged, and it lingered a moment too long. Her head tilted back as she laughed at something he said. I couldn't just sit and watch, I had to confront them. I grabbed my phone and stormed into the bar. The air was thick with laughter and music, but all I could focus on was the sight of Sarah and Mark sitting at a booth, engrossed in each other. The sight was maddening. I marched over, adrenaline surging through me, and called out, "Well, well, well, if it isn't my lovely wife and her friend." The look of shock on Sarah's face was priceless. Her mouth dropped open, and Mark quickly turned red as he pushed himself away from the table as if trying to distance himself from the explosion that was about to happen. "Jake, what are you doing here?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking. "Just thought I'd check up on you," I replied sarcastically. "Seems like you're having a great time with your little secret." I watched as embarrassment washed over her. The confidence she had when she was with him evaporated in an instant. Mark tried to play it cool, but I could see the panic in his eyes. "You need to leave," Sarah said sharply, but her tone lacked authority. I leaned in, my anger boiling over. "No, Sarah, you need to explain this. What's going on here? Is this just a friendship too?" I gestured towards Mark, who was now sweating bullets. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out for a moment. It was like she was grasping for words, but she didn't have any decent excuses left. Before she could stammer out another lie, I turned on my phone's recording app, capturing the moment. "You don't get to walk away from this, Sarah. I want the truth." She stuttered. "Jake, please, I can explain. It's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like? You've been lying to me for months. You're right here with him. What else do you need to say?" The tension in the room was palpable. Other patrons were starting to look over, clearly aware that a scene was unfolding. Instead of backing down, I pressed on. "Is he better than me? Do you love him?" Her face twisted in a mixture of frustration and guilt. "No, I don't love him. It was stupid. I was feeling neglected," she trailed off, her voice barely above a whisper. "Neglected? You think cheating is the answer?" The confrontation turned into a chaotic mess of accusations, with Sarah trying to defend her actions but failing miserably. Mark, realizing he was caught in the crossfire, attempted to excuse himself, but I wasn't about to let him off the hook either. "Stay right there," I commanded, pointing at him. "You don't get to run away after screwing my wife over." The whole scene was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, hurt. The other patrons were now fully engaged in the spectacle, and I felt a rush of satisfaction knowing that Sarah was being held accountable in front of them. I captured her lies on video, and I knew this was just the beginning of my revenge plan. As I walked away from that bar, my heart was still racing, but I felt empowered. I had taken back some control, and as much as it hurt to see Sarah with someone else, I was ready to take further steps in my revenge. I didn't want to let her think she could get away with this and come out unscathed. What was next? I wasn't sure, but I knew I was on the path to making her feel the weight of her betrayal, one way or another. After the explosive confrontation at the bar, I felt exhilarated, but it was a mixed bag of emotions. I had confronted Sarah, caught her in the act with Mark, and even collected evidence. But the aftermath was looming over me like a dark cloud. I had no idea how this would unfold, what it would mean for our marriage or for me personally. That night I returned home alone, the silence echoing in the empty rooms. My heart was still racing, but now I was alone with my thoughts. The video I had recorded played in my mind like a broken record. I was ready to unleash it on Sarah, but I didn't want to show my hand just yet. I felt like a chess player plotting my next move carefully. When Sarah finally came home, the atmosphere was thick with tension. She walked through the door, clearly shaken. The bravado she had shown earlier was replaced by vulnerability. Her eyes were downcast, and I could tell she was struggling to find the right words. "Jake, we need to talk," she started, her voice trembling. "Talk about what? About how you've been lying to me and cheating." I shot back, unable to hide my bitterness. "What's there to talk about, Sarah? You've made your choices." She took a breath, trying to compose herself. "I know I messed up. I was scared and confused, and I didn't know how to handle everything." Her excuses were weak, barely masking her guilt. "I thought I could handle it without hurting you. I didn't want to ruin our life together." I felt a wave of anger surge through me again. "You didn't think that maybe being honest with me would have been a better choice, instead of sneaking around behind my back." I paced the living room, feeling the frustration build inside. "Jake, please," she begged. "I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you, but I want to make it right. I love you." Love? Did she really love me? The words felt hollow after everything that had happened. "You have a funny way of showing it," I replied coldly. "How can I trust you now?" Sarah broke down, tears streaming down her face. "I'll do anything to fix this. Just give me a chance," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. It was heartbreaking to watch, but at the same time I felt a fierce determination. I wasn't ready to forgive her just yet. Instead of responding, I pulled out my phone. "You want to fix this? Let's start with some honesty. I want you to watch this." I played the video I had recorded at the bar, watching her expression change from shock to horror as she heard her own voice, full of excuses and lies. The realization hit her hard, and the tears flowed more freely. The shame in her eyes was unmistakable. "I can't believe you recorded me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want you to understand what you've done," I replied, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and sorrow. "This isn't just some mistake you can gloss over. You've broken my trust in a way that's not easily repaired." She sat down on the couch, burying her face in her hands. "I never meant for it to get this far. It was just texting. At first, I thought it was harmless. I was just looking for excitement." The words dripped with regret, but they did nothing to soothe the ache in my chest. "So you thought it would be okay to flirt with another man behind my back? Do you understand how that feels?" My voice was steady, but inside I was raging. "You took something that was sacred between us and threw it away like it was nothing." We spent hours talking, or rather, arguing. I felt drained as I confronted Sarah about every lie, every moment I could remember where she had misled me. She tried to defend herself, saying she felt neglected and that she didn't think I would understand her feelings. But the more she talked, the more I realized that she had created a narrative in her head that justified her infidelity. Finally, I decided it was time to lay out my plan for revenge. "You think it's that easy? You think you can just say you're sorry and everything will be fine? I need you to understand that there are consequences for your actions." "What do you mean?" Sarah looked up, her eyes wide with fear. "I'm going to make sure you feel the weight of this betrayal, not just for me, but for you too." I explained that I wasn't going to let her come out of this unscathed. I wanted her to live with the choices she made, to see how her actions had consequences beyond just hurting me. "Are you going to tell everyone?" she asked, panic creeping into her voice. "Maybe, maybe not. But I'm not going to be the only one who knows what you've done. I want you to feel the shame, the embarrassment, and the pain of losing the trust of your loved ones." Her face went pale. "Jake, please, you don't have to do this. I'll do better, I promise. Just give me a chance to make things right." But I wasn't convinced. I had spent years building our life together, and she had shattered it in a matter of months. The more I looked at her, the more I saw the woman who had betrayed me, not the woman I had loved. That night, I made a decision. I would take action, not just for revenge, but as a means to protect myself from further hurt. I needed to show her that this was a serious matter, one that couldn't just be brushed under the rug. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I didn't yet know how far I would go or what form my revenge would take, but I was resolved to make her understand the gravity of her actions. I had a long road ahead, and I was determined not to let her get away with this. I had to make sure she learned her lesson, one way or another. After laying down the groundwork for my revenge, I found myself in a strange state of focus. I had emotions swirling around, anger, betrayal, and a newfound determination to reclaim my life. Sarah was still living in the shadow of her lies, grasping at any chance to regain my trust. But I didn't want her redemption. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. I decided to start by leaking the video I had recorded at the bar. It was a powerful tool, one that could expose her infidelity not just to me, but to her friends and family as well. I knew that if I shared it with a few key people, the ripple effect would be significant. I wanted her to experience what it felt like to have her secrets exposed, to have the world see her as the unfaithful wife she had become. I made a list of people who needed to know: her closest friends, her family, and a few mutual friends of ours who had always supported our marriage. I selected a few clips from the video that showcased her lies, the excuses that flowed so easily from her lips. I felt a mix of satisfaction and dread as I prepared to press send. On a Friday evening, while Sarah was out running errands, I took the plunge. I crafted a message explaining the situation, emphasizing that I was heartbroken and betrayed, and that I felt it was only fair for them to know the truth. I attached the video and hit send. It was done. I sat back in my chair, a rush of adrenaline coursing through me as I realized the path I had chosen. As the minutes ticked by, I felt a strange mix of guilt and exhilaration. I knew I was crossing a line, but I felt justified. Sarah had shattered our trust, and I wanted her to face the consequences. I steeled myself for her reaction when she found out. When she returned home later that evening, I could tell she was in a good mood. She had bought a bottle of wine, hoping to celebrate what she called our path to healing. But I wasn't in the mood for healing. I was ready for a showdown. "Hey, Jake. I thought we could watch a movie and just relax tonight," she said, beaming as she poured us both a glass of wine. I didn't respond immediately. I wanted to savor the moment of anticipation. "Yeah, about that," I finally said, my voice steady. Her smile faltered as she noticed my serious tone. "What's wrong?" I leaned forward, looking her straight in the eye. "I don't think you'll be in the mood for movies tonight." "What do you mean?" She shifted uncomfortably, sensing that something was off. "Let's just say I've shared a little information with some people who deserve to know the truth about you." Her expression shifted from confusion to panic. "What are you talking about, Jake?" I pulled out my phone and opened the message thread, ready to show her the wave of replies that started flooding in. "I sent out the video, Sarah. Your friends, your family, they all know now." Her face paled, and I could see her heart drop as the reality of my actions sank in. "You did," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Oh, I did. You wanted to lie to me and make me believe everything was fine while you were sneaking around with Mark. I thought it was only fair for them to know the kind of person you've become." "Jake, please, you can't do this," she pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. "This isn't fair. I thought we were going to try to work through this." "Work through this? You've got to be kidding me," I snapped back. "You think after everything you've done I would just forgive you and let it slide? No, Sarah, this is about consequences. You've hurt me deeply, and now you will feel the repercussions." She dropped down onto the sofa, her hands trembling. "You can't let this happen. I'll lose everything." "Maybe that's the point," I replied. "You took everything from me. You need to face the reality of your choices." As the argument escalated, I could see frustration and regret battling for dominance on her face. She started to sob, tears streaming down her cheeks as she realized the full extent of her actions. "I didn't think it would go this far," she kept repeating, as if saying it would make it true. I felt a mix of satisfaction and sorrow as I watched her break down. Part of me wanted to feel pity for her, to comfort her and say that everything would be okay. But then I remembered the lies, the deceit, and the betrayal that had led us to this moment. I couldn't allow myself to feel that way. "Sarah," I said, my voice softer now. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. You'll have to face your friends and family and explain why they're finding out about this. It's time for you to take responsibility." Her sobs grew louder and she buried her face in her hands. "I can't believe this is happening. I thought we could fix things." "Fix things," I repeated incredulously. "You think fixing things means pretending like nothing ever happened? You need to reflect on what led you to betray me in the first place." I left her there, sobbing into her hands, and retreated to the bedroom. I needed space to think, to process everything that had just unfolded. I felt a strange sense of liberation mixed with the weight of what I had done. Eventually, the notifications from my phone pulled me back to reality. The replies from the people I had shared the video with started rolling in. Some were supportive, others were shocked and angry. My friends reached out to me, expressing their sympathy and offering to help me through this. I knew I had taken a drastic step, but I felt like I was finally standing up for myself. In the days that followed, I watched as Sarah's world began to unravel. She received calls and messages from friends, some of whom I had never met. The fallout was swift, and it was clear that she was struggling to maintain her composure. I didn't have any sympathy left to give. I wanted her to feel the impact of her actions. It was a long road ahead, filled with uncomfortable conversations and emotional upheaval, but I was ready to see this through. I had taken back control, and now it was time for Sarah to face the consequences of her betrayal. I would no longer be the victim in this story. I was determined to reclaim my life, one way or another. The days following my decision to expose Sarah's affair unfolded like a slow-motion train wreck. The fallout was chaotic, and I found myself in a whirlwind of emotions. Part of me felt vindicated for taking a stand, but another part was deeply unsettled by the destruction I had caused. I had unleashed a chain reaction that was spiraling out of control. Sarah was a mess, crying, angry, and utterly humiliated. She spent her days glued to her phone, trying to manage the fallout with her friends and family. I could hear her muffled conversations through the walls, filled with pleas for forgiveness and attempts at damage control. But I felt nothing. Part of me reveled in the chaos I had created. The other part struggled with the realization that this was my life too. Our life. One evening I returned home to find her packing in the living room, her face taut with anxiety. "Jake, we need to talk," she said, her voice shaky. I raised an eyebrow, crossing my arms. "What's left to talk about, Sarah? You've already said everything you needed to say." "I know I messed up," she began, but I quickly cut her off. "Messed up? You didn't just mess up. You destroyed everything we built together," I shot back, my frustration boiling over. "What exactly do you want from me?" "Forgiveness, that's not going to happen. Just listen, please," she pleaded, her voice rising. "I want to explain. I didn't think it would go this far. I never meant to hurt you." I didn't want to hear her excuses anymore. "You say that now, but you were perfectly fine lying to my face while you were texting him. Did you think I wouldn't find out?" "Jake," I was confused. I felt neglected and alone. I thought this was harmless. I didn't think about how it would hurt you or how it would affect us. Her voice cracked, and I could see the desperation in her eyes. I felt a flicker of sympathy, but I quickly extinguished it. "You've had plenty of time to realize the consequences of your actions. You didn't care about me when you were pursuing this affair." I know, but I'm trying to make it right," she insisted, her hands trembling. "Please, just give me another chance. I promise I'll fix this." "Fix this?" I echoed incredulously. "You can't just fix a broken vase by gluing it back together." "Trust is shattered, Sarah. It doesn't just magically come back." She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. "What if we go to couples therapy? We could work on our communication. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all. Therapy. How could I sit in a room and discuss feelings with someone who had so brutally betrayed me? "You think I want to sit across from you in therapy and talk about our feelings? You've taken that option away from us. Please just consider it. I know I've made mistakes, but I love you. I want to fight for us." Her desperation was hard to watch, but the hurt was still fresh in my mind. "You have a funny way of showing love, Sarah. Love doesn't involve betraying your partner. Love is built on trust, and you've shattered that. So forgive me if I'm not eager to jump into therapy anytime soon." The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken realities. I could see her crumbling before my eyes, realizing that the facade she had maintained was now in tatters. The woman I had loved was gone, replaced by the hollow shell of someone who had made a choice to lie and cheat. "Jake, please," she said, her voice breaking. "I'll do better, I promise. Just give me some time." I shook my head, the finality of my decision solidifying. Time isn't going to change what you did. You need to understand that your actions have consequences, and right now, I don't want to be a part of your redemption story. I'm done. I turned away from her, the weight of the conversation sinking into the pit of my stomach. The reality of my decision was starting to settle in. It felt liberating, but it was also terrifying. I had been with Sarah for so long. We had plans, dreams of a future together. Now all of that was shattered. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself adjusting to a new routine. I spent more time with friends, rediscovered hobbies I had set aside for our relationship, and focused on reclaiming my life. It was a journey of self-healing, and I needed to embrace it fully. Sarah, on the other hand, spiraled deeper into despair. She continued to reach out, trying to clear the air and salvage what was left. Friends had turned against her in light of the truth, and I could see how deeply the consequences of her actions affected her. One day, she came home to find me packing a few things. I had decided to stay with a friend for a while. "Where are you going?" she asked, panic lacing her voice. "I just need space," I replied, trying to sound calm. "I can't be here right now. I need to figure things out without you." She looked vulnerable, her defenses stripped away. "Jake, please. I'll do anything to make this right, just don't leave me like this." "Sarah, you need to understand that you brought this on yourself," I said firmly. "I can't keep pretending that everything is fine when it's not. I need to take care of myself now." I watched as she crumbled, the weight of the reality crashing down on her. The woman who had made the choice to betray me was now facing the consequences, and I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. I had to prioritize my own healing. As I stepped out of the door, I took a deep breath. It felt like a new beginning, a chance to reclaim my life and my sense of self. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had taken control of my narrative. It was time to focus on myself, to rebuild, and to move forward without the weight of betrayal weighing me down. The road was still long, but I was determined to navigate it with strength. I had learned the hard way that my happiness mattered, and I was ready to fight for it. I wouldn't be defined by Sarah's choices. I would be defined by my resilience. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a flicker of hope. It was time to start anew. The weeks that followed my decision to leave were a whirlwind of emotions. I stayed with a close friend, Mark, who had always been supportive. It felt good to be away from the chaos, to have a space where I could breathe and process everything that had happened. I often found myself reflecting on the tumult of my relationship with Sarah, the betrayals, and the journey through heartbreak toward healing. Sarah tried to reach me multiple times, sending messages filled with apologies, pleas for forgiveness, and promises that she would change. At first, I felt a pang of guilt reading her desperate words. It was difficult to see someone I once loved in so much pain, but I quickly reminded myself of the truth: this was her doing. She had crossed a line that I couldn't overlook. As time passed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I took up running again, something I had loved before my relationship consumed so much of my time. It felt liberating to have that freedom again, too. Wake up early and hit the trails while the world was still waking up. Each step felt like I was shedding the weight of my past, and with every mile I felt a little stronger. I also spent time reflecting on what I wanted for my future. I began to explore new hobbies, took a cooking class, and even started volunteering at a local shelter. Helping others helped me heal. It redirected my pain into something positive. I realized that I could create a life filled with purpose and joy without Sarah by my side. One day, I ran into Sarah at a local cafe. I was sitting at a table, sipping coffee and working on a book, my usual spot. I looked up and there she was, looking disheveled and lost. My heart dropped, but I reminded myself of how far I had come. I wasn't the man she had left behind. I had grown. She approached me cautiously, a look of uncertainty on her face. "Jake," she began, her voice shaky. Can we talk? I hesitated but nodded. What do you want to say? I know I hurt you deeply, she said, her eyes filled with regret. I've been doing a lot of thinking since everything. I know I ruined our marriage, but I want you to know that I'm working on myself. I've been in therapy trying to understand why I did what I did. I listened but felt a wave of indifference wash over me. Her words felt rehearsed, and the sincerity that once drew me to her now felt hollow. You should have thought about that before you made those choices, Sarah. I replied evenly. I'm not interested in rekindling anything. I'm focused on moving forward. I understand, she said softly, her shoulders slumping. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you, and I know that doesn't change anything, but I hope you find happiness, Jake. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But then I remembered the pain, the betrayal, and the turmoil of the last few months. I hope you find happiness too, Sarah, just not with me. With that, I stood up and walked away, feeling a sense of closure wash over me. I realized that I was ready to leave the past behind. I had taken the time I needed to heal, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I felt the warmth on my face, a reminder that life continues. I knew I would face challenges ahead, but I also felt a newfound strength within me. I had been through hell and come out on the other side, stronger and more resilient than before. In the following months, I focused on myself, on rebuilding my life, nurturing friendships, and pursuing my passions. I embraced the freedom that came with my decisions, and I no longer felt tethered to the mistakes of my past. Reflecting on the situation, my journey taught me valuable lessons about trust, self-worth, and resilience. I realized that relationships are built on mutual respect and honesty, and when those foundations crumble, it's essential to stand up for yourself. If there's one piece of advice I would share with others who find themselves in similar situations, it's this. Don't be afraid to prioritize your own happiness. Betrayal can cut deep, but it doesn't have to define you. Take the time to heal, reflect, and remember that you are worthy of love and respect. Life has a way of moving forward, and so should you. As I walked away from the cafe that day, I felt lighter, ready to embrace the future and whatever it held. My journey was far from over, but I was no longer a victim of someone else's choices. I was reclaiming my narrative, and I was set on writing my own story moving forward.